Hey everybody, we are filming this on Thursday morning in the senior center, and usually this would be full of some of our seniors and we would be having a good time singing. So just want to let you know that we miss all of our seniors, we miss Golden 60s, and hopefully soon we'll be able to meet on Thursday morning. Josh, let me ask you a question. If I came up to you just at Walmart or somewhere and said, let me tell you something, your son Jameson is a beast.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a weird comment.
It'd be a weird, just out of the blue, it's a beast. Morgan would probably smack me up beside the head.
Yeah, she might.
But if after a basketball game I came up to you and said, man, I'm telling you what, Jameson's a beast.
That'd probably be a pretty good compliment.
That would be a compliment, because those of you who don't know basketball, to call a basketball player a beast is a compliment. And calling your son a beast would all depend on the context the context around what I said, or
Right.
I called him a beast, right?
Right.
Context is important. Context means everything. And people take things out of context all the time. Politicians,
Right.
they take things out of context. Movie reviews take things out of context a lot of times, product reviews. Do you know the movie that lost the most money in 2019?
No.
Come on, I thought you was a movie guy. It was X-Men. Is it X-Men?
Yeah, that's what you
Dark Phoenix lost $100 million. But yet, you could read some of the reviews. The reviews were terrible, but yet in their advertising, they took just words out of the reviews. For example, in the Hollywood Reporter review, in one sentence it said, genuinely powerful. And in the X-Men advertising, it could take that phrase out and put Hollywood Reporter. But the whole sentence was, what should have registered as genuinely powerful instead plays out in a pretty low-key way. It was really not a compliment. It was really sort of bad.
Right.
Another example would be this. A sentence in the critic for the Tribune news service said, what's truly amazing about Dark Phoenix is watching the charismatic, award-winning star-packed cast. And they could take that sentence and put it on there and make it sound like, man, this guy really likes it. But here's the rest of the sentence. What's truly amazing about Dark Phoenix is watching this charismatic, award-winning, star-packed cast flail about in this poorly written nonsense cartoon. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And so, you can take anything out of context and make it mean something that it really doesn't. You can even do that in the Bible.
Right. We see even a lot of times in scriptures, we see people pull things out of context. And one of the most common ones is Philippians 4:13, where it says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And Woody, my biggest pet peeves is to see athletes write it on their shoes, and they'll only put, I can do all things, ... And it drives me nuts because they don't finish it out, and they don't really even truly maybe understand what that means.
Right. And in context, I saw a cartoon this week with a guy standing on top of a building and quoting that and then jumping off the building. Because in context, Paul is saying, I can get through anything. I can endure difficult times. He's in prison. He's not saying I can accomplish anything through Christ.
Right.
But yet we pull it out. Another one's in John 9, I think it's verse 31, when Jesus heals the blind man. And the people are questioning this healed blind man about what Jesus did. And the blind man says, we all know that God doesn't hear the prayer of sinners. And I've heard preachers and people take that verse and preach whole sermons on God doesn't hear the prayer of sinners. And it's the man that says it in context. It's not a true statement. God doesn't say it. Jesus doesn't say it. And there's all types of examples in the Bible. Cornelius, just all types of examples in the Bible where God hears the prayers of sinners, but yet I've heard people pull that out of context. And so, pulling scripture out of context to try to prove a certain point can make a difference. And that's sort of what we're going to talk about this Sunday.
Right. This Sunday, we want to look at one of the scriptures that is often pulled out of context, and we're going to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we really want you to look at verses 1 through 13 this week. And so as you prepare for Sunday, we hope that you'll take some time to read that. And then we got some homework for you as well. What was the homework?
The homework is this. Name 3 sins in those 13 verses that Paul said the Corinthians were guilty of. And when you read the passage, you'll see that he's going to call back to history and Israel, and he mentions what Israel did, and he's saying, I don't want you to make the same problem. 3 sins they were guilty of. And then what does God promise to them when being tempted to sin. What are two things that God promises them? Three things, three sins they were guilty of. What are two things that God says he promises to do when we were tempted? And I guarantee you, when you read those 13 verses, you'll find the passage that is often taken out of context. So, join us this Sunday at
9:15. We'll start a watch party on Facebook, and then we'll have it posted to the page and to YouTube as well.
So we'll see you Sunday.
See ya.